Welcome, welcome, good people. This is Jay Artis-Wright, the host of Choice Words, a podcast brought to you by Freedom to Choose Schools. And we are excited to have another episode today where we talk to some amazing people around the country that are doing phenomenal work for our students. Today's episode is about something that is near and dear to my heart. It's about students that are opportunity youth. It's the age range from 16 to 24, where 5 million young people across this country have just disconnected from school and have quite frankly not figured out their path for work and for the workforce. And it's been something that is continuing to grow. As I said, about 5 million across the country. In addition to that, we know about 18% represent Black students and about 14% represent Latino students. And it just really stuck with me most recently when I had a school visit in San Antonio, and I got to meet our guest today, Nestor Esparza Magana, who is going to talk with us about what the experience has been with the organization that he has called Student Alternatives Program, SAPI. And I invited him to come on the show to just share his experience, his personal journey into this work, and ultimately give us some insight into the success that he's had not only across the country, but specifically here in Texas with some of the things that his schools have been doing. So, Nestor, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I'm excited to be here. My name is Nestor Esparza Magana, and I am the executive director of SAPI. We're a nonprofit working together with Triumph Public High Schools. Triumph Public High School serves 100% at-risk youth. So, like you mentioned, really giving students a second chance with education, right? So they get an opportunity to complete their high school, and Triumph offers a different model in which students have flexible schedules, and this allows them to be able to balance those responsibilities that they might have. Like some of them might already have children, for example, right? Or they need to contribute to the household in some way, and they need to get full-time jobs. So when they're put in that situation, it becomes difficult for them to attend a regular high school and with a traditional schedule. And Many times, obviously, this pushes them to drop out, and that's where Triumph comes in, and that's where those second chances start. And then for us working with Triumph directly. Right now, I'm actually at the Puro Community Studio that it's embedded in the San Antonio campus. So we work directly with the school, with the students, while we also do work beyond the school and in general to engage the community. Our primary focus are the students that are attending Triumph. So in that sense, what SAPI does is complement the educational model of Triumph by providing opportunities beyond the classroom and beyond graduation.
You mentioned Triumph, and I would love you to explain the difference between Triumph and SAPI. But before we go there, I want our guests and our listeners to learn a little bit more about you because you are a world traveler. I mean, you've been to Latin America, South Asia, Europe, leading work on international NGOs as well. How did your journey lead you to come home to work in Texas?
Well, my name is Nestor, and one of the meanings is the one that returns home. So maybe this is one of the things. Maybe
Okay.
my destiny was to come back to San Antonio, but I am originally from Toluca, Mexico. So I moved to San Antonio when I was 15. So when I was in high school, and I came here as an English language learner, as an emerging bilingual. I mean, my English was very little, and I got to experience traditional high school with 3,000 students, and just that's what you would see in the movies, like kind of
Yeah.
like arriving here, and it was that, right? Like this very diverse school with a lot of students, and I had that experience of like arriving here, and I remember taking like ESL classes, and the other ESL students were like from Germany and from the Philippines, and like so it was really an interesting experience. To I look back and I always say like I'm glad that I got to experience something so different, because I think that in a way set path for what I wanted to do professionally, and kind of like have
Mhm.
that experience of being abroad and getting to know other cultures and expanding your horizons in that way. But at the same time, always giving back to the community, right? Because
Right.
my thought was, when I embarked in this career, was like, how can I support, how can I give back, right? So
Yeah, well, you said, like you said, it's written in your name, so it's almost like a given that you have to,
that
you know,
that I was
our
gonna have to
names
come back.
mean a lot, right? Our names mean a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
And the thing is that when you're, so I worked in India, I worked in Colombia, I worked in many countries, and the communities embrace you and welcome you, and it's very rewarding to support them. But there's nothing like when you come back to your community, right? To
Mhm.
the community that
That
where you
raised
have
you.
like
Yeah. Mhm.
the most ties to, where your family lives, like things like that, right? It's a very rewarding experience,
Mhm.
and I think just working with youth, that has been something that was always a passion of mine, because I always thought like, and I started working on this when I was very young, so I almost like,
Mhm.
I saw myself there and kind of thinking like, hey, this is the future. And now I look back and I'm like, well, that was back then, but doesn't change the fact that youth are they can be agents of change, like in a big
Yeah.
way, right? And we
Mhm.
can let them, like you said, forget them, right? Or we can give
Mhm.
them those second chances and really create opportunities, not just for them, but for our societies, for our communities, for our
Right.
state, our country, however you want to
Mhm.
see it. Like it all accumulates. So it's in everyone's best interest that we support youth that have been disenfranchised, and many
Right.
of them minorities. That's also the reality. You mentioned that very well with the statistics, and that's just the reality that we face, and it's something that I did not expect initially, to like end up working for a nonprofit that was working in education. So it's been a learning experience, like I mean, just thinking, for example, about charter schools. When I started working at this, the SAPI was focusing a lot on like supporting advocacy and raising awareness about
Mhm.
choices for parents and for students, and I came into this kind of like, I didn't know that. Like I thought that charter schools were private schools, so I was coming
Right.
from this place of like, it's so evident that so much like basic work needs to be done to raise awareness, so that our communities know that there are like school opportunities out there that might respond in a better way to their specific needs. And once I kind of like learned that, I was like, oh wow, like I'm like, even myself, and I consider like, obviously I was living abroad for a long time and not having children here, like obviously like that's something
Mhm.
that you're not so familiar. But nevertheless, I was like, if that's what that was my kind of like initial impression, without digging further, it's very easy then to create misconceptions about it, right?
Right.
So that's something that's important, advocacy, and just raising awareness on the importance of the youth that we serve, and the opportunities for those
Yeah.
parents, for those students. So
Well, I want to dive into that too, because I know that SAPI has three connected pillars. It's youth development, advocacy, and then non-traditional education. You were speaking a little bit about those. Like, how does that fit together into one approach?
well, I mean, we really take the youth-centered approach to kind of drive all those things, right? So as we're doing the advocacy, we're using the voice of the students. I mean, we're asking them to be the ones talking, right? That's always our focus, as to how do we bring this together, right? Like, as far as the educational model, the same thing is responding to the specific needs of those students. What gives us really a lot of opportunities as SAPI is that when we take this youth-centered approach, having access to all the Triumph students allows us to just ask them what they want to see, what they would find interesting, how can we engage them, what matters to them, right? And then just making them realize that they have power to also create change, because their voice matters. And that's how we kind of like bring all together, by always having the youth at the center of it, and us being those kind of guardrails and support systems and mentors, right? Which is something that we find extremely important. And a lot of this is coming from them, so it's just asking them constantly and getting feedback and adjusting to respond better
Mhm.
to their needs and interests as well.
And I found it interesting too because first of all, again, we're talking about a population basically high school age, it's like 16 to 24 years old. Um, and when a young person who's been kind of written off comes through your doors, what has happened what for them, to make them believe things can be different?
Well, I mean, the stories are so vast as to how they come first to the school, right? I mean, many of them, it might be that they got in trouble with the law, and it's really their probation officer that it's saying like, "Hey, we need to figure out a way for you to finish school," right? A lot of them are like word of mouth, so it's like people telling other people, students telling other students about the school. The circumstances are really vary. Sometimes, like they might be homeless. They might not have really those support systems, and they need to work, and they end up being referred by like a school counselor or someone like that. So it's like it really varies as to how they come into the school. Um, Now, how do we engage them to like come here to the studio and engage after school? We make everything really optional, right? Like we want to be kind of the opposite of what school would be, right? It's
Hmm.
we wanna have them be here because they want to be here, and not because they're like forced to pass a test or get a credit, or because we want to be that something that it's of that it's appealing to them already,
Right.
right? And by doing that, we just open the doors of our studio. We go and talk to them. We give them presentations. Right now, this semester, we're putting together some documentaries about the after school program, and we're using that material, which is also student content, to engage other students and let them know about what we're doing, and try to have them spend as much time in these spaces as possible, right? And knowing that we are creating a safe space, that there's mentorship taking place, and that we're allowing creativity to kind of flourish, and for them to express themselves in a different way. I mean, you can already see like the colors in the space, and like the
Mhm.
art that goes on, and that's really what how we appeal to them, right? So we try to be like use all these creative tools to engage them,
Mhm.
with the intention that they can spend as much time as possible here. And once they're here, and once they have access to mentors, once they have access to things that they will not normally have access to in the school, they start kind of like realizing that they have other opportunities, right? So that's where we don't want to just be like, well, get creative, and and let's make something colorful. It's really the idea of like all the mentors that we're bringing, they're all creatives, but they're all entrepreneurs, because what
Mhm.
we know is when we have asked our students, right, it's like the economic need is among all of them. Like we in all of our campuses, we have over 90% socioeconomically disadvantaged, so the economic need is like it's present there. So being able to, as in school we're doing college and career readiness. What we want to do here is also provide them with the idea that entrepreneurship is also something very important, and
Mhm.
we want to be complementary to what they could have access in the school. So for example, in the school they might take an entrepreneurship class, and it will focus on basic things like maybe setting up a bank account, thinking about your credit score, like things like that, that are very, very important and essential. But what we're trying to say is like, hey, how do you develop social capital? How do you put yourself in places in which you're going to meet adults that could give you an opportunity? How do you get yourself an internship, an apprenticeship, or just that? How do you start developing your side hustle, right? Like whether it's just something small or it's like a serious one. And that's kind of like right now during like phase 3, which is going on. That's what we're doing with the students. So as we bring them in, we really ask them like what's your interest, what do you like to do, how can we connect you to the people that would be of that could give you like different opportunities. And through that, on their own, they start kind of like finding their space, their path. They start exploring different interests, and but I think it's always central to go back to them and ask them like, hey, what do you guys think? Many times it's like maybe in a school context it's much more difficult to ask for those things, right? It's like you cannot go and be like, hey, what do you guys think about that test, and
Right.
standardized test or something like that. We can ask them a lot of things and get feedback, and that only makes our programs stronger. So that's something that again, it just like revolves always around what they think and what they could propose as well. So
And let me ask you, because I know that your schools run year round as well, correct? And
yes.
so that open year round enrollment, is that something that helps to build more in kind of like you said, those after school things, or is it just like that's the approach to get them to catch up? Like for so many students, like how are you trying to reach them with the year round enrollment?
As far as like we think that the programs that we are right now implementing after school, we believe that this is going to be something that is going to help also the school in enrollment, right? Because we see it as a plus, let's say, to the school. um, the the part that really kind of helps support the open enrollment that goes on throughout the whole year is the advocacy part, which we then take as like advocacy as your best marketing, right? So how can we then take these student voices, and by having those student voices doing advocacy, how can this be basically tied to uh, like a direct enrollment tool to be able to start, like, kind of like bringing students to the school. So that's something that kind of we do throughout the school year to support the school. But for example, in the summer we'll have community events also
Yeah.
to engage the community as a whole. And we do it also in a way in which we host events here at the campus, but we focus on like bringing culture
Yeah.
to the events as a way to connect our communities to our school without being so in your face about, like, like, here's the school, or here's SAPI. We try to just kind of be a little bit more about like come together as a community, and then have them be the ones be asking the questions. So that's we'll do things like bringing lowriders, for example. Like, we're having a
Right.
lowrider show coming up in 2 weeks, and that's
What?
one of the
Wait, no, no, stop right there. You can't just throw that in there. I'm from California originally, okay? So like having a lowrider show, you're talking my language now. Like one of my favorite cars is a Chevy Impala on switches. What are you talking
well,
about?
I mean,
Like,
we have had several Chevy Impalas. We don't use
all
the
right, I'm gonna need an
hydraulics.
invitation. I'm gonna need you to send me an invitation.
Yes, yes, for sure. We have several of those, and that's kind of like how so we call this space the Puro Community Studio. And actually, this happened as a result of the community events and the kind of like advocacy efforts or enrollment efforts that we were doing to support the school. And we came up with the Puro Community Cultural Series, and it's interesting because initially, like, when I was thinking about this idea, my thought was really like, okay, culture as a central piece to this, because when this event started, the campus here in San Antonio was just about to open. So we didn't even have students to like engage yet. So it was really about like, how can we engage the community, and being in the west side of San Antonio, and like, just the whole like Chicano culture, right? Like, we thought like, well, lowriders has to be something that it's going to be of interest, and yeah, look, what ended up happening is that initial event that we had, the local news showed up, and they showed up for the lowrider show, and they were like, hey, what's going on, like, who's in charge, right? And I started talking to them, and I said, like, it's great that you're covering the Lorray show, but we're opening the school, and this is like a community event, and we serve 100 actors. Well, they said, hey, when you're about to open, we're gonna come back and we're gonna do a feature on the opening of the school. And it's again like, how do you do these things to help you like drive like enrollment, right? Like using like youth voices and culture as a way to like not just like build culture within like your campus, but also just to like create community and build up like that enrollment.
Right.
So you do those type of events, people, you're not even using the name of the school or the nonprofit, you're making a community event, but people are showing up to document this, to ask questions, and then you have earned media. which is basically a result. Because if you were to hire that, it will be $3,000, $4,000 for an episode. So
But then you lose the authentic touch to it as well, because, like you
right.
said, this is about building a community, which is why I felt like I had walked into someone's home when I came to visit one of your schools, which speaks so much to how you're setting it up. It also speaks to what you just named, which I want to go into a little bit more deeply, is the Latino community and culture is very much a driving force for how you connect. And it's unmistakable. So how does culture drive that work? Like, you kind of named it, but what is it that you've seen specifically? Like, for example, I'm gonna answer it for you. How about that? Like, when I came to that school, I saw generations of people working there. It was like all ages, young and old. I saw food that I get from home. You know what I mean? Like, to this day, Taco Palenque is a spot that I would go to when I visit San Antonio, because the students like, oh, you got to go visit Tacos Palenque. But I just love the way that you guys were able to thread that through. And it's not a matter of doing it. It wasn't unauthentic. It was just, again, like who you are and how y'all represent. So I appreciate you naming that. I want to shift a little bit. You're a strong voice in the Latino community, and there are not enough Latino voices in leadership on education. Why does it matter for Latino leaders to step into shaping this type of work, especially when you talk about the community and advocacy and connecting it to schools?
Well, I mean, I think it's important, and maybe going back to a little bit what you were saying about the school, just the idea of having teachers, right? Having actual direct teach as part of the model, right? Like, obviously this starts developing that culture, and I think a lot of the teachers, a lot of like our staff with SAPI, right? Like, we all have some experience, let's say, some direct experience, some direct lived experience. And this allows you to have more empathy, right? I mean, this allows you
Mhm.
to understand where people are coming from. And we all have different stories. So I think it's important that to see more Latino representation, and this is not just in education, just in general,
Yeah.
because so we look at a place like here, like San Antonio, where you have like 60% plus of the population being Hispanic, right? Like Texas as a whole as well, right? So the more representation that you have in things like education, which is the pillar of our society, the better understanding that we're going to have for our students. I mean, that's just it's not a must, but it will help a lot to have an understanding, a lived experience. Because, and I think that's what makes things real, because you cannot fake that empathy, because you put yourself in those shoes, and then you think about how it was for you. And once you start having those connections that you cannot fake, that you have them because you experience them, I think that can just be such a positive impact, right, for students when we're talking about education. Because they not only you not only understand them, but they also see you as a role model. So
Yes.
they see like, hey, like this person understands me, knows where I'm coming from, but look what this person's doing, right? And I could talk about myself, but like that's what we also do with the mentors, right? That are not part of our staff that we're bringing in. It's like they were high school dropouts and maybe went to a school that it was like, they had challenges in life, and that kind of like challenges that unfortunately affect brown and black communities disproportionately, right? So
Mhm.
having that representation, I think, is just so important. And you can take it, as I said, education as a pillar of our communities, but you can go into representation in government, and just it's just a much better way to really think about like development, because it's just a much more organic way to approach it. So
Right. And you said something that we often speak to a lot on this program, and that's for Black and Latino communities. That is a center for us. Education is a core pillar for our communities. But it's not a standalone thing. We don't separate education from our culture or our community. And in some cases, that's where you miss that disconnect, because you are in a kind of amalgamated or systemic structure that isn't allowing you to bring all the parts of yourself to that school. And for some of our kids, especially those that are a little bit older, they don't feel connected. They just, they lose interest for whatever reason. So I commend you on just the whole approach that you're having, and just always trying to find ways to connect. And then most importantly, listening. Like you mentioned something that I want to make sure that our listeners and our guests hear very clearly, is that you not only take time to talk with the students, but you actually listen to them. You ask them questions that allow them to feel like they have ownership of what's happening in their lives, which is huge, especially for that age demographic that we're talking about. I've got a couple of more questions for you, Nestor. The next one is about just in general, like if someone's listening to this, we did mention that Triumph is a part of SAPI, and Triumph is a charter school. What would you say to a parent or young person who's never seen themselves as an advocate, who may be interested because they kind of fit in this model that we've talked about? What would you tell them about the power that they already have?
Wow. I think for someone that it's not that is not attending our school, or someone that is not part of our program, what I would start with telling them is that they have the power of choices. And I mean, I think that's very powerful. I mean, like, you don't need to feel like you are limited to one choice, which was for many years the case, and those alternatives were not there. So I think that they have that power to be able to choose what's best for them and for their families, and that nothing can be imposed on them. I mean, they really have options, and I think really where we come in is to like let them know it's like you have that power, like this exists, like, make the choices that are really beneficial to your specific needs. And I think that's something that's, as you're like, when once you're already working in education, you find this to be like, well, it's like so obvious, but it's not. It's like sometimes
Mhm.
it's really about the basic things. I even tell people, like, it's like, and sometimes I don't even like, using advocacy. It seems like a complicated word, but I just tell them it's like, just speak your story, and if you are already part of this, you know how beneficial this is. Just go and tell your story to someone else, and that's very powerful too, because you're changing someone else's life by just like recommending them that, or letting them know, informing them, and that's also very powerful. So the power of choices and the power of your voice are going to be there, and obviously the more that we come together, the more voices,
Mhm.
the more power you have. So that's the next step, right? Like, I mean, as an individual or as a family, there's that, but when we come together as a community, then this just potentializes in sometimes like unstoppable ways, so
Yeah. I
so
agree, and I think we are doing. You're seeing that more with with this access, right, and having more opportunities. It's like you're expanding the opportunities, but then it's also, ironically, at the same time, returning the school environment to more of a smaller classroom size environment, more individualized than what I think people were expecting. And you've mentioned the word advocacy a lot, and all of this advocacy ultimately protects something. Families have access to options that work for them. We're dealing with a population of students that have been either overage or undercredited, and they're learning, but they are literally our next generation of workers and um, parents and citizens. What would you say is at stake right now? What are they fighting to defend?
oof, that's a good one. For us, it's really the students that we engage. I think the initial thing is comes to education, because to them, once they are part of the school and they start engaging with us, they also start realizing that there's politics and there's things, and there are things that they cannot understand as to why someone wouldn't want a charter school, let's say,
Mhm.
in their city, or in their community. And to them it's kind of like mind blowing, because it's so beneficial to them. It's really what has given them that second opportunity. So
Mhm.
education becomes something that they really become passionate about because of
Mhm.
those choices. And once we start engaging them here, like that's like the one that kind of goes across, all of our youth. But then you start seeing that they're also interested in other things just that young people are interested on, right? So for example, the after school program, the first phase of the program focuses on the upcycling of clothes, and that led to like designing clothes and like a fashion show and bringing mentors. And we asked them, right, we asked them like, what do you want to, like, and things like saving the environment, saving the planet, like reusing stuff, recycling stuff. Like these are things that are like important to them. So once it's like, okay, well, how can we bring that into the after school program, and then we can start talking about like the circular economy and how can you have less waste, right? And how can you, another thing that was of interest to them, that it's not advocacy, but it was like they want to be unique, right? And it's like, okay, well, this idea of upcycling clothes, it's basically making clothes one of a kind. And so
Mhm.
it's like you're getting those two things, in which is this appealing thing, and they're using social media and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, but I care about the environment, I care about the planet, I care about the
Yeah.
future of my community. So you start seeing like, specific things that each student kind of like, you know, leans towards as far as like what they are feel passionate about. But I think starting with education, and then things like what is just the future holding for us, right? I mean, you start hearing things about AI as well, like being a concern
Mhm.
for them, and that's something that it's like we're living through that, and we're kind of just like, we're learning as we're going, and they're experiencing these things. So that's also kind of like, but that's why I think it's important to always be like asking them, because this
Yeah.
changes, like you might have a world event, and then this changes the mentality of like, a whole society. So it's like what
Yeah.
becomes important then. So
And I think that's really profound that you said that, because you have a population that, like you said, that this is actually a second chance for them. They are not the ones that have given up on their education. It's like people have given up on them. They've given up on trying to find ways to connect with them. And exactly as you guys are connecting with them, the first thing they're fighting for is to be re-engaged in their education, to have an education, have a right to options, right? So that's really powerful. I've got about two or three more questions for you, and this has been really helpful just to understand. I've got so many more questions because I'm thinking about this upcycling that y'all are doing. I'm looking at that mural behind you, and I just realized I got to come visit you more often, Nestor.
yeah, no
But
record show that's coming up, so I'll send you the info.
yes, definitely. But the other question I had is, SAPI's been around for a while. What does success look like for SAPI in the next years ahead?
Well, at the moment, we're hoping, we have 11 campuses as Triumph, right, throughout the state. Right now, what we're doing here in San Antonio, we want to replicate in our campuses. So really, what's next is being able to expand this model onto the other campuses. So right now, we're starting with, can we start by setting up a space like this in each
Mhm.
campus? So each campus will have their own Puro Community Studio. And then we're looking into being able to get grants to be able to do like full scale after school programming like we're doing here. So as we're like developing models along with the in partnership with the school, our one of our goals is to be able to go into every single campus and provide this. Now, here in San Antonio, since we're like a little bit ahead as far as having the studio and the activities for the San Antonio campus, we're also looking into going into the community, right? So we also have another space here in San Antonio that we're thinking about our alumni, right? Like, how can we now start engaging them after graduation in this type of programs? Because coming to the school, well, it's great for our students. It's difficult for the community because we have security, we have all these protocols, right? It's not a community center. So those are the two things that we're like right now in the path of like taking this to the other campuses and taking this to the community outside of the school campus. So we're not only looking at our alumni, but how can we engage their parents or grandparents? They have been asking about like, hey, how can I also learn photography or upcycling? All this stuff is like, well,
Mhm.
there's also that need, right? So we're looking at serving the community as a whole. in obviously what's our main area of work, but being able to expand beyond youth as well and serve their families too.
That's fantastic. And thanks so much for sharing it. For anyone who's in the San Antonio area or either they want to know about the other 11 campuses, how can they find out more about your work? They can follow SAPI's work or see what your students and communities are doing.
I think a great way for people to see what we're doing, like day to day, is to follow us on Instagram. The Our handle is SAPI dot community, and from there you'll find the information to our website. You'll find information to go and visit also the Triumph website, but you'll get to see all the student-led content, and especially right now in this summer that they're getting assignments. Last week they were covering, sorry, yesterday they were covering Texas Fashion Week.
Okay.
So they were like they're engaging in different activities, and they're uploading the content, videos, pictures. So that's a great way to go and support. And if you like their content, go and let them know because they really appreciate it. So if
Yes.
you like the pictures, if you like the videos, give them a heart and let them know because they get excited about it.
No, definitely. And feel free to share some of those videos and photos with us as well. And we'll make sure that we also support it so people can see what these amazing students are doing. I just immediately fell in love with the campus that I visited, with the principal, who I'm hoping we will also invite to come back to our show to talk more about Triumph, the school. And they actually, not to give it away, but to give a little sneak preview. Triumph was actually a charter school that won an award from Freedom to Choose Schools this year, a national award just recognizing for storytelling, actually. So you really do walk the walk and talk the talk. Nestor, final question for you. This podcast is called Choice Words, and it's called Choice Words for a reason because we want to hear about the different options that people have in the education that they're exploring, but also because choice words is a common term used to be able to express your opinion, and what you want people to know specifically from your own thought process. And so, Nestor, as we close out, I have to ask you, what are your choice words? If you had to think of something that you want to share with our listeners, what would you tell them?
I will tell them to get creative or to stay creative. I think everyone has creativity, and sometimes we underuse our creativity. And I think it's very important to be creative, and I think it's especially when you don't have a lot of resources, when you don't have unlimited access to everything. It's something that our community see all the time. You see this at home. You see how people like make food, how they all get creative. So how can we get creative and come together, right? So I would say that get creative, stay creative as a way to develop culture in your school, campus, or in your community. So
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as we close out this episode, I just want to thank Nestor again for joining us and for sharing the good work that SAPI is doing. It's a reminder that helping students isn't about forcing them into one mold. It's about meeting young people where they are and building a school around their real life experiences. It's about community, it's about connectivity. And as Mr. Nestor said, it's about creativity, finding ways to get creative and use all the different resources that you have at your fingertips to empower our young adults and our young students. So, again, Nestor, I thank you so much. This has been a fantastic episode. I enjoyed talking with you as always. Don't forget to invite me.
I will. I will.
Curious
So
about that lower. Is it going to be a competition too, or?
yeah, we always have a competition. Yeah, we call it El Favorito, and the whole community votes. So it's like not the nicest one with the best paint.
Yes.
It's like, hey, if the 5-year-old like the pink one, that's the one that it's gonna go. So yeah, we do have like a little contest going on
All
every year.
right. Well, for all of our listeners and our guests, please, sapi.community,
Yes.
Triumph Charter Schools in the Texas area, San Antonio, you will not be disappointed when you go visit their sites and go visit their social media and see the great work that they're doing. It is truly inspirational. Nestor, you are truly inspirational. Your students are amazing. Shout out to the young student who told me about Tacos Palenque. I go there every time I'm in San Antonio now. And I just appreciate you again for being on the show. Thanks for our listeners, and until next time.
Thank you.